Hey, this is Cameron, and welcome to the practice log. Alright, well, we got a lot of stuff to do today, so let's go ahead and jump into it, shall we? Well, I just got back from the gym, so that was pretty cool. I had a pretty good workout. I've had a pretty good morning in general, though it is 1 p.m. right now, and I start my teaching day at 4 p.m. today. Whoa, oh my god. Look at all the dead skin on my heel. What happened? Whoa, that's crazy. Oh, it's on that side too. Gross. There's just like an insane amount of dead skin on my feet. It's a good way to start this one off. My feet are peeling. If you didn't think my feet were gross enough, imagine skin falling off of them. Yeah, what are we doing today? We're working on some Bach, we're working on some Sor, we're working on some Giuliani, all the usual stuff. I was at the gym and I was kind of thinking, because I like to do that, I'm quite stoic. I'll lift weights and then I'll just think about stuff. And of course, I was thinking about like scales and stuff. This comes from questions that I've gotten, but I'm not going to find a specific one. But it all comes from the idea of how do you teach somebody music theory and harmony, and what's the easiest way to do it, and like how did I learn it? Because I did learn it and I use it every day. Like I have a pretty solid understanding of like music theory to a certain level and harmony. Like I'm at least familiar with like each concept that's studied in school. I might not be fluent in each concept, but I'm certainly fluent in the stuff that I use all the time. So like the stuff that I find important. And then I also have a pretty solid understanding of like the fretboard. And I find that when I'm teaching my students, just finding a starting place with that stuff can be so difficult because it's just like, where do you even begin? It's not like this linear path that you follow where you learn like the first thing and then you learn the second thing, but it's almost this like 3D web of information, and you can start anywhere, and any one path that you take in that web is very weak and fragile. But as you take more and more paths that connect eventually, you can take this path for a long time and take one here. Then once they connect, it becomes much more sturdy. And then the more of these paths you make, you eventually create this like skeleton of this like 3D web of music theory. And once there's enough bones in the skeleton, you can sort of infer all the other information. Like maybe you don't know it immediately, but it's like, well, because of these paths, like I could imagine what's on that path. And then everything just kind of fills in. At least that's how learning music theory and harmony has been for me. So where do you start? Because there's a lot of places that you can start. And I know that you guys have asked this too, like how do you learn music theory and actually have it be something that's useful to your playing and like your memory and stuff? I am kind of coming up with this off the top of my head. There are two different aspects to playing your instrument and understanding your instrument. There's your technical ability, of course, and then there is your intellectual understanding of the notes that you're playing and how they interact with each other. And that's like the music theory, like knowing what you're actually playing, understanding the relationships between the notes. Like as a really simple example, like I can play a G and I can play a D, and I know that the D is the dominant of the G. And that's like a pretty important concept, right? For like our harmony that we use. For me to understand that concept of like tonic, dominant, tonic, like just in random bar chords like that, it's so much easier for me to understand that if I already know how to actually play the chord. You know what I mean? Because if you told me like this G tonic D dominant thing, and it's like, yeah, you know, like you have like your G major scale, like, and there's a tritone like nested in there somewhere, and that's like tense, right? And it's going to resolve to other notes in the scale that are less tense, they're consonant, we call it that. That just sounds like jargon and gibberish to me if I don't already know how to play guitar. But if I can hear you say those things, and it's like the 4th and the 7th degree of G, and they resolve to the 3rd and the 1st, and I'm actually able to play it and hear it, it makes it way easier to understand. And because I can already play the guitar a little bit, I can actually visualize the fretboard and see how the notes actually resolve. And my point with that is, understanding that without being able to play it first, I feel would make it a lot harder, because you're just kind of getting information that's just based off of nothing. You just have to remember it, and there's no like support that's adding to it. So you have to ask yourself the question when you're looking at a student, do you think it's going to be easier for them to intellectually understand what I just said without being able to play it yet? Or would it be easier for them to learn how to put their fingers playing a G major scale, and then I tell them to play certain notes of the G major scale, and they're actually able to play it, and that's going to allow them to intellectually understand what they were doing? So you have to ask yourself, which one's going to be easier for you? I'll tell you, for me, like I'm kind of a jock, dumb guy, right? The physical part of playing guitar came pretty naturally to me, and the intellectual part I had to work on a lot. So that's what I did. Like the first few years of my guitar playing, it was just scale work, playing scales, having having no idea what the scales meant or why I was doing it, just having a vague understanding that it was going to help me play guitar better in the future. And that's really why I did it. It just seemed important, and I just kind of picked it. And I became proficient in that one thing. Scales are a good choice for something like that. You could also pick like arpeggios or whatever. It can really be anything. If you become extremely proficient in any technique on the guitar, you're proficient on the guitar now at one technique. It's going to be way easier getting proficient at another technique, like scales, arpeggios, whatever, because you're already playing guitar. So I guess my point with that is, if you find yourself struggling to intellectually understand something, like some concept, maybe just pick the bones of that concept. Whereas our tonic and dominant chord, well, they're all kind of in the major scale, right? Maybe just get really good at playing the major scale and stop thinking about it so much, and come back to it later. And you'll sort of uncover what everything means, but it'll be so much easier when you can play it and you know it by heart and you know what it's supposed to sound like, and you can visualize it and actually hear it in your head and like imagine going through because I think once you're able to do that, a lot of these theory concepts are actually really easy. Like they're just sort of movements and like tendencies that the notes follow. But for me, without that initial technique foundation to actually realize it, like as I'm learning it, it would be way harder. Like I wouldn't have been able to do it. So for me personally, I think that technique and then understanding the intellectual part of it, that's the order that I should learn things. Like I first want to learn how to play it and then I'll understand it. And that's how I've kind of gone through everything. And that works for me. You might be the opposite. Maybe you're some brainiac smarty pants and you have a way easier time understanding it intellectually, and then you have to work on actually playing it. And if that's the case, then that works for you, but know that that doesn't work for everyone. So like I have some students where I tell them the actual like theory before they're even anywhere close to playing it, and they get it. Like I can tell that they get it. With some students, I start to tell them and then I just don't even bother, and I just give them some exercise to start playing. And it's like, here, just get really good at this first, and then we'll kind of make sense of it later. But just memorize it by rote. I don't care. You can always fix by rote memory later on, like especially early on in your playing. Like I shouldn't be learning things by rote. I'm past that. But you know, if you're like early on, if it gets you playing it, I think it's fine. Yeah, an example, I don't know, have you guys ever played Pokemon before? Like, you know how Pokemon works? You catch your Pokemon and you train them, and you train them by just like grinding and leveling up. And I kind of consider that grinding as like just working on raw technique. Just like, I need to get my fingers faster. I'm doing like a picking motion. You can tell I'm a dirty scum trash. Yeah, so working on your scales, that's like the grinding in Pokemon. And then using the moves your Pokemon acquire, you beat the gym leader of that town. And now there's a certain minimum to beating the gym leader. Like you could study like what move types are best and like what the gym leader's moves are gonna do, and you can study and get like just barely high enough level to where you barely make it through, and it's like a real nail biter. Like it's just you're just on the line the whole time, but you barely win. And you can do that, and that's sort of what learning the intellectual part is first, where you actually learn everything works and then you barely get your technique good enough to actually express it. Or, and this is how I approach Pokemon too, you just turn your brain off and you freaking grind in the grass and you level up like 5-10 levels past where you need to, and you just wipe the floor. There's no intellect in this battle. Like you are just tackling and it's just half their HP. Boom, boom. There's just no chance. There's no strategy. You're just total brute forcing it because you put that boring time investment into getting more powerful. Either way works, but personally, like I said, I'm kind of a jock dumb guy. I'm not going to be doing research on Pokemon moves and what the best move types are. Now, maybe after I beat the game a few times, I'm going to start thinking about that, and then I'll get really proficient at it, learn like what types are good against what, all that stuff, really get into the nitty gritty, because I'm into Pokemon now. It's like, well, I already know how to beat it and I'm good at it. Let's get really freaking good at it now. That's like how I operate. But like, you don't have to start doing that like in your first time, at least for me. Maybe some people, they want to learn like absolutely everything as they go, and then when they beat the game for the first time, that's just, all right, I'm a master now. I'm a Pokemon master. That seems like a lot of brain power and work that would have to go into that, which, you know, is cool too, but it's more fun when you have a foundation to sort of make sense of it with. Hopefully that makes sense. And just in case it's not clear, if you have the question, okay, I'm going to follow your path. I'm going to try to get really good technique, and then I'll start making sense of the theory with the technique that I have. Well, what do I practice? I think scales. Scales are kind of the foundation of everything. Practice your major scale specifically. And if you're on the guitar, practice it in 5 positions, like so you go through the entire guitar neck, and just do that for a really long time. And that should be like sort of your home. You can like close your eyes and like walk through your house, right? Like you could visualize walking through your house. you should be able to just close your eyes and visualize walking through these scales in one key, like 5 positions, one key, and you just sort of see them, like as your imaginary hand moves up. I'm just doing this to show you what I'm thinking. You can kind of see all the scales, and they're there, and they're just completely committed to memory, as if they're like the language you speak or something. And that is something that doesn't take a lot of brain power. Like, it's just memorizing patterns, because that's all you have to rely on at that point. You don't have any theory to rely on, it's just patterns. And then you learn the theory on top of it. You learn like what makes a major scale. Like, of course, you learn like the tonic and dominant chords, and you see how those notes, when like lined up, like basically make the major scale minus the 6th scale degree. And the patterns that you learned become reinforced with logic now. So it's not just random patterns anymore, but you're starting to see the logic, and it's confirmed with the logic. It's based on something now. Like, you have 2 things that it's based on, like in the 3D web that I was talking about. And like I said, I'm sure you can start from either side of that. Like, you can start with just theory and get that really solid, and then start working on your technique, and you're always thinking about theory, or start with technique and then get it really solid, then start thinking about theory. Or you could start with both and do both, which I think can be good too, but I don't see anything wrong with just picking one and going hard, and then picking another and then going hard later. There's nothing wrong with that. At least in my experience, I've never practiced everything like evenly. I've always sort of done that. Like, even in the last practice session that I did, I just worked on recuerdos for like 2 hours. Just because you kind of get in the groove, you get in the flow of practicing something, and you just kind of only do that. Countless days I've just practiced scales for like hours and hours, and that's all I did. I didn't think about any music whatsoever. And in countless days I've just practiced Giuliani arpeggios, like just one Giuliani arpeggio for hours, and just that, and you just kind of only think about the arpeggio. I think there's a lot of value to that. There's a lot of value just sticking to one thing and just sticking with it for a while. Got any questions about anything that I just said? Feel free to reach out. I'll go ahead and plug it now if you're already listening. I teach guitar lessons. If you want me to teach you some stuff like that, if you want me to give you some scales to work on or some theory to work on, you know what to do. Email's in the description. Just email me there. Rates are in the description too. You don't gotta ask me how much I've charged, because it says it right there. I sell shirts too. Buy a shirt, buy one of those tank tops, shirts. Still figuring out the store. I don't know what to do about sales taxes. Don't tell anyone. All right. Anywho, I guess we can go ahead and start practicing. So, I'll see you in the piano bench. There's a reason why I'm bringing this up. I've just found, like, in academic settings, like, it is very, like, of course it's academic. Like, it's all about the intellectual part of everything. But I'm just saying that in your own personal practice, it doesn't really need to be that way. And, like, what is it that you really want? You probably want to play guitar better, and that's all going to come from technique. So you might just want to focus on technique and, like, playing scales and all that stuff, and that'll allow you to play guitar better. And you really want to understand exactly what you're doing. It'll just be a series of aha moments, because it'll be like, oh, that's why it works, because, like, of course it relates to everything I just practiced. Alright, I'm gonna shut up about it now. Oh, I forgot to mention, I do have, I've applied to 2 schools so far. I'll probably do like 3 or 4 that are within like a 200-mile radius of me now. And then I'll do like 1 or 2 that are like far. But yeah, no, I'm getting those applications in. Where was I going with that? I thought I was going to say something. Oh well, never mind. I'm getting my applications in. Boom. Oh yeah, so it makes me wonder if I should abandon the Giuliani for now and just do Bach and Sor. Because those are like the pieces I'm going to audition with. I'll start with the Bach. Alright. I'll see you on the other side. Okay, I think I'm about done for today. So, let me bring you closer. I did a lot of work on the Presto, but I think I'm going to go ahead and just play the fugue for you, because, you know, why not? We'll see how that goes. I'll see you there. fugue, that's where it's at. Pretty good, right? My arm sleeve got all bunched up. It was stopping my arm from moving freely. Yeah, no, I thought that came out pretty well. I think it's pretty clear what I need to work on. The second half. I feel like the first half I have pretty darn solid. So if I could get the second half like as good as the first half, I'm in pretty good shape. Oh, Vades are coming out. If you were a professor, would you accept me into your grad program with that? Hopefully so. We'll see what they have to say about it. If I can get the second half as good as the first half, I'd have like a pretty decent fugue, I'd say. Alright, well that pretty much covers it. Hey, I start teaching at 4. It looks like I have enough time to go on a walk outside. That'll be nice. Alright, well let's go ahead and wrap this thing up. I'll see you in the outro. Hey, well, you know, if you made it this far, be sure to subscribe and leave a like. And hey, want some guitar lessons? Want me to teach you some stuff about something? Perhaps a fugue or something? Yeah, just, you know, emails in the description, reach out if you want some lessons. And of course, if you want a t-shirt like this one, and we got some new designs in the oven right now. There's gonna be a big drop coming soon, so it'll be pretty dope. That will be coming out, so you know, look out for that. Buy some shirts in the meantime. Shirts are good to have. Cover your body, freaking animal. What else we got? Of course, if you have any comment questions about anything, feel free to leave them, and I'll answer them in the chair at some point, as I do. Alright, well, I'll see you tonight.